I remember the sound the glass made when it touched the table. It was soft, almost careful, like someone trying not to wake a sleeping child. That sound is what stayed with me. Not the fear, not the anger. That sound, because when I heard it, I knew something was wrong. We were sitting across from each other, my daughter-in-law and me. The kitchen was quiet in that way it only gets in the afternoon. Too quiet. No radio, no television. Just the hum of the fridge and the ticking clock over the sink. The one I had bought years ago, before she ever came into our lives. She smiled when she set the glasses down. It was a polite smile, practiced, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. She said, "I made you something warm. You always say it helps your stomach." I did say that. I had said it many times. I had trusted her with small things like that. I looked at the glass in front of me. Steam rose gently. It smelled familiar at first. Then something underneath it, something sharp, not strong, just enough to make my chest tighten. She sat down slowly, like she had all the time in the world. She picked up her own glass and wrapped both hands around it. She didn't drink. That was the first sign. I watched her face instead of the drink. I watched her eyes. They kept flicking to my hands, to my mouth, then back up to my face. "Go on," she said softly. "Before it gets cold." My heart began to beat louder. I could hear it in my ears. I tried to tell myself I was being silly. I was tired. I worried too much. That's what everyone always said about me. But my body didn't believe those words. My hand moved toward the glass, then stopped. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe it was the way she held her breath. Maybe it was the way her shoulders were tense, like she was waiting for something to happen. I picked up the glass. It was warm. Too warm. I brought it closer to my face. The smell hit me again. Wrong. Not spoiled. Not burned. Just wrong. I looked up at her. She smiled wider this time. "Everything okay?" I nodded, slowly. And then I did something I had never done before. I reached across the table and switched the glasses. It was a simple movement, almost casual. Like I was teasing her. Like it was nothing at all. Her smile disappeared. Not slowly. Not politely. It dropped. Her face went pale. Her eyes widened just enough that I knew. In that moment, I knew. She said my name. Not loud, almost a whisper. "No, no." That one's. I lifted the glass she had brought for me. The one that was now in front of her. I held it between us. "Why?" I asked. My voice didn't shake. I don't know how. Inside, everything was shaking. She stared at the glass like it was alive. "I think you grabbed the wrong one," she said. Her voice was tight, thin. "I don't think I did," I said. The room felt smaller, like the walls were moving in. She didn't answer. She just sat there, frozen. I watched her throat move as she swallowed. Her hands were trembling now, just a little, but I saw it. "Drink it," I said. Her eyes snapped back to mine. "What?" "Drink it," I repeated. "You made it. You said it was good for the stomach." She shook her head quickly. "I'm not feeling well. You should have it." I pushed the glass closer to her. "No," I said. "You first." She stood up so fast her chair scraped loudly against the floor. The sound cut through the room like a scream. "I need to check on something," she said. I forgot she reached for the glass. Not to drink, to take it away. I pulled it back. "Sit down," I said. She didn't. She backed away instead. Her face was tight now. No smile. No mask. "You're being strange," she said. "Why are you acting like this?" I felt something cold spread through my chest. Not fear. Something heavier. "Because you didn't drink yours," I said. "Because you watched me like you were waiting for me to fall over." "That's ridiculous," she snapped. I stood up too. My legs felt weak, but I stood anyway. "Tell me what's in this," I said. She shook her head. "You're imagining things. You always do this. You always think people are against you." That hurt. More than anything else she could have said. Because it wasn't new. She had been saying that for years, quietly, to my son, to others. I looked down at the glass in my hand. "I'm going to pour it out," I said. Her eyes went wide again. "No," that was all she said. One word, too fast, too sharp. I walked toward the sink. She grabbed my arm. Her fingers dug into my skin. "Don't," she said. I looked at her hand on my arm, then up at her face. "You just touched me," I said. She let go like she had been burned. I poured the drink into the sink. The liquid disappeared down the drain. Nothing dramatic. No smoke. No reaction. Just gone. The room was silent. She stared at the sink. I stared at her. What did you put in it? I asked again. She didn't answer. She picked up her bag from the chair. Her movements were jerky, now panicked. I can't do this, she said. You're accusing me of something horrible. You didn't deny it, I said. She stopped. For just a second. Then she laughed. It was the wrong laugh. Too loud, too fast. You're sick, she said. You need help. And then she walked out of the kitchen, out of the house. The door slammed behind her. I stood there for a long time. My hands were shaking. Now, I leaned against the counter to keep from falling. I kept thinking about how close I had come. How easily I could have taken a sip. Just one. I went to the bathroom and looked at my arm where she had grabbed me. Red marks were already forming. That's when I knew this wasn't just in my head. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was something else. Something planned. Something quiet. I sat down on the edge of the bed and tried to slow my breathing. My mind kept replaying her face when I switched the glasses. That moment when the truth slipped out before she could stop it. I thought about calling my son. My hand hovered over my phone, and then I stopped, because I already knew what he would say. He would tell me I was overreacting, that his wife would never do something like that, that I was tired, confused, emotional. He had said those things before. I put the phone down. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound made me jump. The house felt different, unsafe, like the walls had ears. I kept thinking about all the times she had brought me food, drinks, medicine, all the times I had said thank you. I felt sick. In the early hours of the morning, I got up and went back to the kitchen. I looked at the glasses in the cupboard, the same ones we had used. I picked one up, held it in my hand. I realized then that this was not the first time she had watched me like that, waiting. I just hadn't noticed before. After that night, nothing felt normal anymore. Morning came like it always did. Light through the curtains, birds outside, the same floor under my feet. But something inside me had shifted, like a chair pulled out from under me, and I was still falling. I stood in the kitchen with a cup of plain water. No tea, no sugar, just water. I poured myself. I watched my own hands the whole time, like I didn't trust them to remember how. I kept thinking, this house has seen so much life. Birthdays, arguments, quiet dinners. It had never felt like a place where someone would try to hurt me, especially not someone I had welcomed in. I sat at the table and tried to eat toast. It tasted like nothing. My stomach felt tight, but not sick, just knotted. That's when the memories started coming. Not all at once, slowly, like someone opening old drawers one by one. I remembered the first time I met her. My son brought her over on a Sunday afternoon. He was smiling in that way he used to smile when he was young and proud of something. He said her name like it was precious. She shook my hand. Firm grip, good eye contact. She complimented my home, said it felt warm, safe. I remember thinking, she's confident. She'll take care of him. I wanted that for him. After his father died, it felt like my whole job in life became making sure my son would be okay when I was gone. I worked longer hours. I saved where I could. I didn't travel. I didn't spend much on myself. Everything went to him. When he was young, I used to wake up before dawn to pack his lunch. Same sandwich every day, because he liked it that way. I would leave little notes sometimes. Nothing fancy. Just have a good day or I love you. I stopped doing that when he got older. Teenagers don't like that sort of thing. But the habit of putting him first never left me, even when he moved out, even when he married her. When they asked if they could move in for a while, I said yes without thinking. They said it would just be temporary. They were saving for their own place. It made sense. I cleaned out the spare room, gave them the bigger closet, moved my things around so they'd be comfortable. She thanked me, over and over. She cooked dinner that first week. She insisted, said it was the least she could do. I remember standing in the kitchen watching her move around like she belonged there, like she had always been there. I felt proud and relieved. For a while, things were fine. We were polite, careful, like people walking around each other with cups filled to the top. Nobody wanted to spill anything. Then little things started happening. She would correct me. Small things, not rude, just firm. That's not how the washing machine works, she'd say. You should really eat less salt. That medicine isn't good for you anymore. I read something. At first, I listened. I didn't want to be difficult. I didn't want my son to feel torn. He worked long hours. He came home tired. I told myself it was better to keep the peace. She took over the kitchen without ever saying she was doing it. My spices were moved. My pots ended up in different cabinets. She bought new glasses, new plates. They're easier to clean, she said. I nodded. She started making my meals sometimes. Said she worried about my health. Said she wanted me to live a long time. I should have felt cared for, but sometimes, when she handed me a plate or a drink, she watched me too closely. I told myself that was love or control. I wasn't sure which, and I didn't want to know. My son changed too. Slowly, he stopped asking my opinion. If I said something and she disagreed, he would side with her without even thinking. She's just trying to help, Mom. You take things the wrong way. Can you just let it go? I let it go. Over and over. I let go of my routines, my space, my voice. I started feeling like a guest in my own home. Some days, she would be sweet, bring me fruit, ask how I slept. Other days, she would barely look at me, answer in short words, sigh loudly if I was in the way. I started eating less, not on purpose, just. I didn't feel hungry when she was around. I remember once I got dizzy in the afternoon. I had to sit down. She noticed and brought me a drink, said it would help. After that, I slept for hours at the time. I thought I was just tired. Now sitting at that same table with the memory of the switched glasses, everything looked different. Every kindness felt like a question. I went through my days quietly. I didn't say anything to my son yet. I watched. I listened. I noticed how she always knew when I was alone. How she would suddenly appear with a cup or a bowl when my son wasn't home. I started making excuses. I already ate. I'm not thirsty. I'll do it myself. She didn't like that. Her smile would tighten. She'd ask why. She'd laugh like it was a joke. You don't trust me? I'd shake my head. Of course I do. But my body said otherwise. My body leaned away from her. My body stayed tense when she was near. I began keeping notes. Not dramatic ones. Just dates. Little things. Tuesday, felt dizzy after soup. Friday, slept all afternoon after tea. Sunday, stomach pain at night. Writing it down made it real. And that scared me. I thought about my husband. Then, about how he used to say, listen to your gut. It knows before your brain does. He had died suddenly. Heart attack. No warning. One minute he was there, the next he wasn't. I had learned then how fast life could change. I didn't want to learn it again like this. One afternoon, my son came home early. I was in the living room. She was in the kitchen. I heard them talking. Low voices. She's been acting strange, she said. She barely eats what I make anymore. There was a pause. Maybe she needs to see a doctor, she continued. I'm worried about her mental state. Mental state. That phrase landed hard. My son sighed. She's always been anxious, always. I sat very still. I felt like if I moved, they would know I was listening. I just don't want her hurting herself, she said. Or accusing someone of something crazy. My heart started pounding. She would never accuse you, my son said. I wanted to walk in, to tell him everything. But my legs wouldn't move. Because what proof did I have? A feeling? A switched glass? I stayed quiet. That night, I cried, in my room with the door locked. Silent tears. The kind that don't make noise but leave you exhausted. I realized something then. If I said anything too soon, I would lose him. Not because he didn't love me, but because he couldn't imagine her doing something like that. Love makes people blind. I had taught him that. By loving him without limits. So I waited. I stopped letting her make my drinks. I washed my own glasses. I kept my door locked when I slept. She noticed. She started getting sharper. Her words had edges now. You're being rude. You're ungrateful. You're making things uncomfortable. I apologized more than I ever had in my life, just to survive. Days passed. Then weeks. Every day felt like walking on thin ice. Smiling when I wanted to scream. Eating dry crackers in my room so she wouldn't see. I lost weight. My clothes hung loose. My son noticed. She's just stressed. His wife said, before I could answer. And that was the hardest part. Not the fear, the loneliness. Living in a house full of people and having no one on your side. At night, I would lie awake and replay everything. The first glass, the switched glasses, her face. I knew I couldn't stay silent forever, but I also knew that when I spoke, it had to be with something stronger than words. The pressure didn't arrive all at once. It settled in slowly, like damp air, like something you don't notice until it's already in your lungs. At first, it was just the looks. She stopped hiding them. When I walked into a room, her eyes followed me, not openly, not rude, just enough to let me know she was aware of every step I took, every cabinet I opened, every glass I touched. If I filled a cup with water, she would glance at it. If I didn't drink what she offered, she would remember. Nothing was said directly. That was the hardest part, because when nothing is said, there's nothing to fight. She never raised her voice, never threatened me, never did anything that looked bad on the surface. She just made it clear that I was being watched. The house changed after that day in the kitchen. The air felt heavier. Conversations stopped when I entered a room. Laughter felt forced. My son still kissed my cheek in the mornings, still asked how I slept, but his eyes didn't linger on me anymore. He didn't really listen to my answers. She filled the silence for him. She didn't sleep well. Again, she'd say, she's been anxious all day. She forgot what she told me yesterday. Small comments, calm voice, concerned face. I started questioning myself. Did I really forget things? Was I imagining the looks? Was I making this bigger than it was? That's how it worked. Not by telling me I was wrong, but by making me doubt that I was right. I tried to hold on to routines. I woke up early, made my bed, cleaned my room, took walks when I could, but even that became difficult. One morning, I came back from a short walk and found my room had been tidied. My drawers were rearranged, my papers stacked differently. My notebook was gone. I stood there staring at the empty spot on my desk. She appeared behind me. I cleaned a little, she said. Your room was messy. My heart dropped. I had things organized, I said carefully. She smiled. This is better. You'll lose things less. I kept a notebook, I said. Did you see it? She frowned. What notebook? The one with dates. The one with notes. The one thing that made me feel like I wasn't losing my mind. I don't know what you're talking about, she said. Maybe you misplaced it. I didn't argue. I couldn't. My voice felt trapped somewhere deep in my chest. That night, I searched the house quietly. Every drawer, every shelf. It was gone. After that, I stopped writing things down, and that scared me more than anything else. She started speaking for me in front of my son. She's tired. She doesn't want to go. She doesn't feel well enough to join us. Sometimes it was true. Sometimes it wasn't. But after a while, I stopped correcting her. It felt pointless, like trying to talk through glass. My son trusted her. He believed she was helping, and maybe, in some twisted way, she believed that too. The imbalance grew without anyone naming it. She handled the groceries, the meals, the schedule. She decided what was healthy, what was safe, what was necessary. I became someone to manage. I noticed that when my son wasn't home, her tone changed, not cruel, just flat. You should rest, she'd say. You don't need to worry about that. I'll handle it. Every sentence was a closed door. One afternoon, I tried to cook for myself. Nothing complicated, just rice and vegetables. She walked in halfway through and stood silently behind me. You shouldn't be standing so long, she said. I'm fine, I replied. She didn't move. You could hurt yourself. I turned to look at her. I've cooked my whole life. She smiled. That doesn't mean you still should. She reached for the pot. I moved it away. My hands were shaking. Please, I said. Let me finish. Her smile faded. Why are you being difficult? She asked. That word again. Difficult. I finished cooking, ate alone, was quiet. That night, my son asked me why I was upset. I'm not, I said. He looked relieved. I realized then how carefully everything was being shaped. How every moment was framed so that I looked fragile and she looked patient. If I complained, I was sensitive. If I stayed quiet, I was confused. There was no winning. I began feeling smaller in my own body, like I was taking up too much space just by existing. Some nights, I thought about leaving, just packing a bag and going somewhere, anywhere. But where would I go? I had given everything to this home, to my son. This was my life, and part of me still hoped it would stop, that she would back off, that my son would see something, anything. The fear changed shape over time. At first, it was sharp. Then it became dull, constant. I started double-checking everything, locking my door, smelling my food before eating, pouring drinks down the sink when no one was looking. I hated myself for being suspicious, but I hated the alternative more. One evening, I overheard her on the phone. "I can't do this much longer," she said quietly. "He doesn't see it. He doesn't understand." There was a pause. "Yes, I know. I'm trying." My chest tightened. Trying what? When she noticed me standing there, she hung up quickly. "You shouldn't eavesdrop," she said calmly. "I wasn't," I replied. She tilted her head. "You seem confused a lot lately." That sentence stayed with me for days. I realized then that the danger wasn't just physical. It was what she was building around me, a story. One where I was unreliable. One where my memories couldn't be trusted. One where, if something happened to me, there would already be an explanation. Stress, age, anxiety. I stopped sleeping. My thoughts raced at night. I replayed conversations, looks, silences. I knew I needed proof. Something real. Something no one could explain away. But I had to be careful, because she was already watching. I didn't rush after that. That surprised even me. There was a time in my life when I would have confronted her the moment I felt something was wrong. Raised my voice. Demanded answers. But that version of me belonged to a different life. A life where I was heard. This one required patience. So I became quiet in a different way. Not the kind of quiet that gives up. The kind that listens. I started waking up earlier than everyone else. Before the house shifted. Before footsteps and doors and voices filled the air. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of water. I poured myself and waited for my hands to stop shaking. I watched patterns. I noticed how she checked the trash every night. How she took it out herself, even when it was heavy. How she washed the sink longer than necessary after cooking. I noticed how certain cabinets were suddenly off limits. How she rearranged the pantry so things were harder for me to reach. One morning, I found a bottle in the back of the cleaning cupboard, tucked behind old sponges and empty spray bottles. It wasn't hidden well. It didn't need to be, because no one expected me to look. It was small, clear, no label. I didn't touch it at first. I just stared at it. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. I told myself not to jump to conclusions, that it could be anything. That I was already scared, and fear makes you see monsters where there are none. But I came back later. When the house was empty, I put on gloves, the thin kind I used for cleaning. My hands still trembled. I picked it up. It smelled faintly bitter, sharp, chemical. I didn't know what it was, but I knew it didn't belong there. I put it back exactly where I found it. That night, I barely slept. The next day, I went to the pharmacy. I didn't tell anyone. I said I was going for a walk. I stood in the aisle longer than I needed to. Finally, I asked the pharmacist a careful question. I didn't mention my daughter-in-law. I didn't mention poison. I just described the smell, the dizziness, the sleep. Her face changed, not dramatically, just enough. She told me some substances can cause those symptoms. She told me it was serious. She told me I should see a doctor if I was being exposed to something unknowingly. That word stayed with me, exposed. I went home and locked my door. I called my old friend from years ago, the one who had worked as a nurse before retiring. I hadn't spoken to her in months, maybe longer. I didn't tell her everything at first, just pieces. She didn't interrupt. She didn't rush me. When I finally stopped talking, there was silence on the line. Then she said, "You need to protect yourself. And you need proof." That word again, proof. She told me what to do, slowly, carefully. I began saving things, not in the house. I started leaving small items with my friend. A glass I hadn't used but that had been set out for me. A napkin with residue. Even a photo of the bottle in the cupboard. I wrote notes again, but not on paper. On a small recorder I kept hidden in my bag. Dates, times, what I felt, what was said. It made me feel steadier, like I was anchoring myself to reality. The turning point came one afternoon when my son was away on a work trip. She brought me a drink. I knew she would. She stood in the doorway of my room, holding the glass like an offering. "I made you something," she said gently. "You look tired." I looked at her, really looked. Her face was calm, almost kind. I smiled back. "Thank you," I said. "I'll have it in a minute." She hesitated. "Drink it now. It's best warm. I nodded. Of course. She stepped closer, watched. I pretended to take a sip. Let the glass touch my lips. I didn't swallow. Her shoulders relaxed. When she left, I poured it into a clean container I had hidden. Labeled it with the date. My hands were steady. That evening, my friend came over. She had brought someone with her. A quiet man. Serious eyes. He didn't say much. Just asked simple questions. Took the container. Took notes. He told me not to confront anyone. Not yet. He told me I had done the right thing. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. The results came days later. The substance in the drink was confirmed. Something that could make someone dizzy, confused, weak. Something that could be explained away if it went too far. Accidental. I sat very still as he explained it. Then I cried. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just tears sliding down my face as the weight of it finally landed. I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't confused. I wasn't crazy. The plan came together quietly. Authorities were informed. Not with sirens or shouting. Just paperwork. Careful steps. Observations. When my son came home, they asked to speak with him. With both of us. She was confident at first, calm, polite, until the glass was mentioned, until the bottle was mentioned, until the dates matched. Her face didn't collapse this time. It hardened. She denied everything. Said I was manipulating people. Said I wanted attention. Said I was jealous of her marriage. My son looked between us, lost. Then the evidence was placed on the table. The recordings, the container, the pharmacy, consultation, the professional explanation. The room was silent. He didn't look at her right away. He looked at me, and for the first time in a long time, he really saw me. I didn't know, he said quietly. I nodded. I know. She stood up, angry now, sharp, but the power had shifted, not with shouting, with truth. Type, continue, part 5. Continue part 5. The days that followed were quiet, not the heavy kind of quiet I had lived in for months. This was different. This was the quiet after something breaks and finally stops making noise. She didn't come back to the house. There were no dramatic scenes. No shouting matches in the driveway. No neighbors peeking through curtains. She left with a bag and a look on her face that wasn't anger anymore. It was something flatter, like a wall had been placed in front of her, and she had no idea how to climb it. The authorities handled what needed to be handled, slowly, carefully, with words like procedure and statements and next steps. I didn't follow all of it closely. I didn't need to. What mattered was that it was no longer just my voice. My son stayed home from work for a few days. He moved through the house like someone walking through a place he didn't recognize anymore. He cleaned without being asked, made meals, checked on me quietly, like he wasn't sure what to say. One evening, we sat at the kitchen table together. The same table, the same chairs, no extra glasses. I keep thinking about everything you did for me, he said finally. And I didn't see you. I looked at him, my child, older now, tired in a way I hadn't noticed before. I didn't want to make you choose, I said, his eyes filled with tears. You shouldn't have had to be afraid in your own home. That was the moment something settled between us, not fixed, but honest. We didn't talk much about her after that. Not because it didn't matter, but because it no longer needed to be the center of everything. The house began to feel like mine again. I moved things back where I liked them, put my spices where my hands remembered them, brought out the old glasses I trusted. I cooked again, slowly, carefully. Food tasted better when I made it myself. I slept with my door unlocked for the first time in months. Sometimes I woke in the night, heart racing, expecting to hear footsteps. But the house stayed still, safe. I started walking again, longer walks this time, feeling the ground under my feet, letting the air fill my lungs without fear. People asked questions, friends, relatives, some gently, some clumsily. I told the truth without details. She hurt me, I said. And I listened when my body told me something was wrong. That was enough. There were moments of sadness. Of course there were. I grieved the idea of the family I thought we had, the trust I gave freely. But there was also something else, strength, not the loud kind. The kind that sits quietly in your chest and reminds you that you survived something you didn't think you could. One afternoon, I found the red marks on my arm had faded completely. I touched the skin and felt nothing but warmth. I realized then that the marks she left weren't just on my body, they were in my memory, and memory can be faced. I learned to trust myself again, my instincts, my discomfort, my voice. I stopped apologizing for taking up space. I started speaking when something felt wrong, not with anger, with calm. That was my justice, not revenge, not punishment, but dignity, and the knowledge that even when someone tried to erase me quietly, I was still here, standing, breathing, listening to myself.